You're listening to the Live Out Loud podcast with River Wynn and Michele Flamer.
Welcome back to another episode of Live Out Loud, where we talk about the messy, magical, and deeply real parts of love, life, and living out loud. I'm Michele, and today we're diving into something that might feel seductive at first, but can leave you feeling spun out. We're talking about love bombing. I've got my ride or die River with me, and we're going to unpack this together, what it looks like, why it happens, and how we can stay rooted in self-trust instead of getting swept up in the storm. Buckle up, buttercups, because this one is juicy. Hi, River.
Hi, Michele. Hi, Buttercup.
That's right. The pod squad are our buttercups.
Buttercups. Wow, that was quite the intro.
I know. I thought we'd shake things up a little bit today
Uh,
because I did not
I'm
want.
shook. I'm shook.
Well, I didn't want you to feel love bomb per usual from me.
I don't know. I feel a little seduced right now. That entire thing was a little love bombing.
Oh my God. I just couldn't resist.
So
Good
good.
old chatty.
Oh my goodness, that was
So
funny.
fun when we're doing research and thinking of new ways to do stuff. It's super fun. But no, but really like love bombing is some serious shit.
Yeah,
Do you
it is.
think it happens more in the queer community or in the straight community?
I mean, I think that's a hard question for me to answer. You know, I don't know. Like, I don't have a lot of experience with queer dating.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's a hard one for me to answer. But
Yeah.
I will say from having been in various like Facebook groups, like queer Facebook groups, it seems like there's an equal amount of people talking about it. You know, like posts like, oh, this person love bomb me, or does this sound love bomby? I've seen just as many of those in those groups as I have like single straight groups, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say it's probably equal, I would
Yeah.
guess. I don't know. What do you think?
In my dating, like I feel like whoever, when I'm talking to someone and I feel like we both become very conscious of like not love bombing. Like we both like it's almost like we really make an intention to not sound like even though we get start to get excited like we're going to see each other in person and the things we want to do and like the physical like just like that long distance flirting thing a little bit.
Hmm.
I think sometimes if you probably like if someone just read the whole thread without like other
Hmm.
context between phone calls and like actually healthy conversations and speaking truth, that those moments are just literally to be flirty and fun and they're not. I'm trying to think of like when does it turn into love bombing. I think that's what I'm trying to get at because I don't feel like I've been
Yes.
bomb maybe a little bit, from someone when I first started to date, which was like
Mm.
like early January. Um, I think, yeah, I think it could have probably sounded pretty awesome and maybe so yeah, I think it's like when it's what's the tipping point is I think what I want to ask there.
Okay, so let's define what love bombing is.
Okay.
Because love bombing and flirting are very different. But I think that
Right.
maybe some people could get confused by it. And I know sometimes maybe it's
I think
hard to
if
like
they've come,
pick up on the subtleties of it, you know? And
well,
so
I think honestly, it's like so many people have been had nowadays have had a lot of short-term relationship or long-term relationships with narcissists. And I
yeah.
think people coming out of that trauma are a
Hmm.
little more hyper and so valid, are a little more
Hmm.
hyper aware of how things are sounding based on previous PTSD from, you know,
Absolutely.
so I think it just
Absolutely.
depends on the lens, like we always say, the lens that I think they're standing in. For me personally, because I haven't really truly been in a relationship that's basically always gaslighting and always love bombing and always push and
Hmm.
pull and all those things. That's why I think I'm super clueless of like the tipping point. So, okay, so
Mm,
I just wanted to
okay.
kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
give context around some of that other stuff being a queer woman.
Yeah, yeah. You haven't really
Lesbian.
had much personal experience with being love bombed. Yeah, totally.
Mm-mm.
Totally. Um, so I mean, so the definition of love bombing, it's a form of manipulation where someone. Okay, so love bombing is a form of manipulation where someone overwhelms you with excessive affection, attention, praise, gifts, or promises very early on to create a false sense of intimacy and attachment. And I think something that's really important to note about this is that people get very confused about whether or not someone is conscious of love bombing them. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, at least in my experience and like knowing other people's experiences, the person who is love bombing is not most of the time aware that they're actually love bombing because it's a behavior pattern that they're not aware of. It's not
Oh, yeah.
always a conscious choice.
Mm.
It's a behavior pattern. So if someone love bombs you, and you're like, why did they choose to do that? They may have actually been like genuinely excited to start getting to know you and date you, but a lot of times love bombers are emotionally avoidant, like
Mm.
they're avoidant attachment style. And
Wow.
so they're maybe not conscious of the fact that they're doing that. They get excited at first and then they back off pretty big. But love bombing also happens in abusive relationship cycles, particularly with narcissists or emotionally immature people.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. And it is,
Wow.
yeah. Yep. Hmm.
So, like, you've experienced love bombing.
Yeah, a lot.
How did it show up for you? And when do you, what's like one of the little tail signs throughout your own experience that you're like, oh, I've like now you recognize it. And now you recognize it probably shorter. Like it doesn't take you months to all of a sudden realize someone's love bomb.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you've gotten better at seeing probably the signs.
Yes, absolutely. Now I know what the signs are because it's a pretty distinct pattern
Mm.
of very early on in dating, like rapid intensity, like rapid. Like they are blowing up your phone a lot. They are calling you. They want to see you a lot. It's
Mm.
intense and it feels like it can to a lot of people it can feel like that spark, that chemistry, you know? But when you step back and you pause and you look at their, actions versus their words, a lot of things just don't line up. They just don't line up at all. And so like my experience has been that with men in particular,
Yeah.
um, there's just like a lot of love bomby language of things like, I feel like I've known you forever. I've never felt this way about anyone, even though we just met. I can't stop thinking about you. I need to see you again tomorrow. Lots of like romantic talk, lots of cutesy things, constantly texting. But then on the other side of it, like they are talking at you constantly, but they're not actually letting you get to know them.
Oh, and that's the little, or that's like a subtlety in that, as like,
Yeah. So, as an example, I have someone that right now I'm having to set some boundaries with, even in our friendship, because they're kind of a love bomber like that. Like they
Mhm.
will not talk for months and then they will show up and just expect to talk to me every single day and text me constantly and like give all these compliments. And it's like, but then when I ask this person critical questions about themselves in a trying to get to know you kind of
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
they're very closed off. They don't want to share information about themselves. They don't want to get deep. And so it's very superficial. Like love bombing is superficial and it feels that way. There's no meat to it underneath it.
Mhm. That's really it's so fascinating thinking, because now you go back and you start thinking about, like, but I think it depends on how the maybe the compliment or the comment comes through, because there's one thing to say everything that you gave as an example, but also I think if someone's just excited to see you, gosh, I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes because I'm enjoying conversation with you. That's
And
not love
there's
bombing.
a,
That's
yeah.
like, that feels more authentic, right? Like,
Right. And if someone says I can't stop thinking about you, that's not necessarily a red flag in of itself because it's
right.
it's it's how they're showing up. Like, I can't stop thinking about you. I want to see you again tomorrow. Cool, but how do they respond to you if you set a boundary with them around your time? I can't see you tomorrow. Do they throw a fit about it? Do they
Mhm.
guilt trip you? Do they
Mm.
make you feel bad about not giving them your time?
Mhm.
How do they show up within that? That for me is a huge indicator. And having like I married a love bomber. I married a love bomber who was from the get-go all about saying the right thing, making big gestures, but underneath that there was a deep lack of emotional safety and emotional connectedness and an openness to actually
Mhm.
truly getting to know each other. So emotional avoidance
So
underneath
love
all of it.
bombing is really coming from manipulation as opposed to dating. It's flirty. What's flirty? So like
Yes,
manipulation versus flirty, it's all in the words and the actions and the energy that's aligning. And are they saying, like, I'm really looking forward to seeing you because I'm enjoying talking to you so much. What's something that you're looking forward to getting to know me about? Like some type
yes,
of that's like, oh, that's healthier in your mind. Like there's certain things that can look sound like a red flag, but are actually a green flag depending upon what's flanked on like either side kind of thing.
exactly. How they show up, what the context is, all of that. But someone who's love bombing, it's like I said, it's surface level. It's all surface level. It's they're trying to fast track emotional closeness, but they're not working on building actual trust or safety.
And that's why you say there's that avoidant piece in that side of it,
Mhm,
is that it's
mhm.
just like you said, it's just words at you, words at
It's dopamine. It's a dopamine hit for them, and usually for the person who's on the receiving end of it, I'm gonna guess is probably a more anxious attachment style person.
mm,
And being a loved bomb as an anxious attachment style person feels good. You're
mm,
being chosen.
mm.
They're like making a big deal about you, which at the root of anxiety attachment style is a fear of being abandoned. So if this person is coming on to you strongly, it is checking off that dopamine box for you.
No, right. And I think that's important to like acknowledge. How does this translate to an in-person coffee date?
Hmm.
If we're like using, applicable scenarios so that the pod, whoever's listening right now, if they're feeling like maybe this is something that's happening to them, and they say yes anyways, right? Like we know when maybe there's intuition around red flags, but sometimes we go, you know what, not everybody's good on text, or I'm like, for me, I'm not good with text and tone
Yeah.
until I've had enough like conversations with you where I can start hearing your voice in the text, like and that tone, and I know it. I might still say, all right, let's just meet for coffee. And I mean, anybody can show up on their good behavior, but are there any,
Mhm.
do you think there's
I
any?
think so. An example, I mean, I personally experienced is being in person with someone. It wasn't necessarily on a coffee date, but just being in person with someone who love bombs is that they, from my experience, they tend to be like very overtly physical. So like
Mm.
invading kind of your personal space continuously. A lot of compliments, a lot of surface level chatter and future planning, but not actually opening up and having in-depth conversations or sharing much about themselves. Um,
So that would track from even the texting in a sense. That's a
yeah,
pattern.
yeah,
Because you're basically doing like, it's future bombing and or future faking and all that. But
yeah.
the meat of what a relationship would be based on has almost you have almost zero knowledge from that person at this point.
Yes, yes. Like as an example, like this one person that love bombed me, it was like we would spend time in person And it was like, it felt good to be around this person because they were affectionate. They were very chatty and giving compliments and wanted to hold hands and all of that. But then anytime I would share something that was beyond surface level, or take the conversation that direction, or ask them information about themselves, how they felt, like trying to get to know you, just like the basic stuff,
Mhm.
they would like kind of disassociate, like kind of blank out, not answer the question directly. Or if they did give information, it was like, for here's as an example, like, what is your job? Like, tell me more about your job. Oh, I work at this company, not naming the company, not saying where they work. This is what I do at my company. Tell me more about, like, you, and like what you're going to wear tomorrow. And like, things like that, like taking it back to like the surface level fluffy stuff.
Yeah. It's a
And
lot of deflecting.
a lot of deflecting, just a lot of closed down energy of not wanting to open up and get personal.
Mm, that's so interesting. I think like, one of the examples used was like, if you loved me, XYZ. That's
Mm,
like a commitment, like a pressure to like commitment or something. It's like, well, if you love me, you would do this for me. Or if you, that's also a form of, love bombing in a sense, because it was coming from more
absolutely.
manipulation energy. It's
Absolutely. Like,
a space of like a real space of lack
yeah, very
for
much so. And
themselves, for their
it's
own like, because they
they're
don't.
they're needing they're needing for you to affirm them,
Hmm.
because they have abandonment issues and they have struggles with feeling like they're enough. It just shows up in a different way. And so I know for me, like even in my marriage, there was constantly a pressure to perform, pressure to show up in certain ways as a wife, that there was a guilt added to it. Well, if you love me,
Yep.
well, you must not love me. Or,
Right.
you don't want to have sex with me. You must not be attracted to me anymore. Maybe you're talking to someone else. And like a lot of love bombers get really jealous, and they
Mm.
get they get really like possessive and clingy. Um, and they do a lot of projecting. A lot of projecting. They will project onto you the behaviors that they do themselves.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah. Other red flags, like other like signs of love bombing, like
Hmm.
so big gestures too soon. So like
Right.
you've just met someone, you've been talking for like a couple of weeks, and they're already like, we should plan a big trip together,
Hmm.
you know, or I want you to meet my family next weekend, like
Yeah.
big things.
Yeah.
Um, it's which is just like way too soon, way too
Mm.
fast, way too fast. They're not giving you time to get to know them. It's more of that like dopamine seeking.
Mm. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
And then future faking.
uh-huh.
A lot of future faking.
God, how annoying.
Like I have someone I dated would do a lot of future faking. Like, I can't wait for us to have kids together someday. I can't wait for you to meet my family. I can't wait for us to do this and that and this and that. And then the next day broke up with me.
Oh my God.
And it's a red flag, because like they're building a fantasy future to hook your
Mm.
emotions. Like they want to keep you there, but they don't really mean any of that, because that's not really where they're at. They're not actually looking for that. They just want your attention and your time.
Is it to win? Is it to be like you're a trophy? Is that it's like they win you and then they're done? Or is it like they win you for a long-term relationship? I mean, are these mostly geared towards long term or short term, in your opinion?
I've kind of experienced both. I think my experience has been that a lot of times it's people who are emotionally avoidant, who think that they want a relationship, but when it comes down to it, they're not actually ready for the relationship they say they want.
Mm.
And they want to keep you hooked because they don't want to be left. They don't want to be abandoned. They want the attention. They want to be validated. And so, even though, and maybe they actually really know that they don't want a serious relationship, but they know that you do.
Can it last like a year into dating and like, can this go on? I mean,
I mean, I married a love bomber.
wow. Yeah.
And so, every time we would have a situation arise where he, quote unquote, got in trouble, he would love bomb. So like my ex-husband chronically cheated on me. And every time I would find out that he was cheating on me, I would make him leave the house so that I
Mhm.
could just be at the house by myself with the kids. I'd make him leave and we would start having a conversation about not being together. And he would love bomb me, constantly texting me, I don't want to lose our family. I don't want to lose you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I just have like a serious problem. I'll go to therapy. I'll do this. I'll do that. He would write me these handwritten letters. He would like have his friends talk to me, his parents talk to me, like
Mm.
constant, just love bombing. And it wore me down to the point where I was like, well, maybe he will actually change this time. Like he's making all these promises. Like he really truly must love me, you know?
Mhm.
And so then I would let him come back. And then a couple weeks later, we'd be right back where we started.
Yeah.
And so, it's love bombing is a tactic. It's a tactic to like flood your system and overwhelm your nervous system so they can keep what it is that they want.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And is it also like around power dynamics? Is it to have control? And that's maybe where sometimes it shows up in a narcissist space because of the control part, or
Absolutely, because a narcissist has to control the narrative at all times.
mm-hmm,
Always has to have the upper hand.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think honestly, like it's it's control from a space of like they internally feel out of control, and so they're trying to control their external. Like all of this comes from like really deep internal self wounding.
So it really is like, I think so someone who might be um not necessarily, I don't want to say it in a rude, like what kind of personality is going to accept that kind of love bombing? Where is this person in their life that they don't recognize the love bombing?
I mean, speaking from my personal experience, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. I
Mhm.
had, negative relationships with my parents.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't receive the love and security and stability that I should have received as a child.
Mhm.
And so then going into adulthood, dating in my teens and then into adulthood, I was looking for someone to choose me
Mm.
and someone who just loved me and like soaked me up. And for me, that's what love bombing felt like. Oh, someone has realized how amazing I am and they just want to snatch me up.
So intensity for intimacy instead of, now we know obviously like intense, like you can have an intense conversation, but
Hmm.
also being truthfully, and emotionally intelligent around intimacy. So,
Yeah.
but it's two people sharing their inner world, basically.
Yeah, and so if you're a wounded person, I mean we all have wounds. We all have wounds, but if you're a person who isn't aware of their own wounds and how that shows up in their dating life,
Yeah.
love bombing is going to feel it's going to feel romantic. It's going to
Mhm.
feel exciting.
Mhm.
It's a dopamine hit to your
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Um, it heightens you and now for me, I am very dialed into my nervous system and how I feel around people. And so, like, for example, the
Mhm.
person that keeps popping up for me, like sliding into my DMs, this person, like, when I first met them 2 years ago, it felt exciting and it felt romantic and sweet and all those things. But now I'm cluing into my nervous system and how this person makes me feel. And they actually make me feel really just kind of like,
Ooh, are you getting the ick?
and get yeah, there's an ick for it for me
Mhm.
because like I said, there's no depth to it. There's no meat underneath the surface of this
Mhm.
person. Just even little things like this person asked me if they could call me last night, and I said, no, I'm camping by myself right now. I'm going to bed. And it was like immediately sent me this long voice message about, I wish I was there to camp with you. And it just like was like so just like
Ick.
assuming that that's even something I wanted. And it was like, we're not dating. Like, why are you messaging me like this? Like, ick. And so like my nervous system is like, I can't imagine myself feeling comfortable around this person now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas 2 years ago, that would have felt like,
That
oh,
was a different
I'm
version
being
of you.
chosen. I'm being chosen. This is
Mhm.
romantic. This is sweet. This person is very quickly into us talking, saying, I can see you as my wife. Like like all of that. And it feels good to be chosen as an anxious person who didn't have safety and security as a child.
Right, right.
So
That makes
that's
so
how it
much
showed up for
sense.
me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an intelligent person. I'm a wonderful human being. But 2 years ago, I hadn't done the self work that I've done in the last 2 years,
Yep.
and I accepted that 2 years ago because it felt like I was being chosen.
So if you're feeling love bomb, but see the good in somebody, not future fake yourself, but like seeing the good in a lot of the other things that they're showing up, but they just, you know, is there any way for you to have like would you ever have like a conversation? I'm trying to like if someone's right now in this, like going through, they've known someone maybe for 3 or 4 weeks, and they've this might be their third date, and if it's still sort of appearing, is there a way to have a conversation with the person first, or would you just be like run for the hills?
Based on my own personal experience, my inclination would say run for the hills.
Yeah.
Because love bombers are people who don't respect boundaries. They don't
Mhm.
have the emotional intelligence yet to meet you in a space of creating safety and emotional depth.
Mhm.
And most likely they're going to bounce on you anyways in a couple of months. That's unfortunately true, unless you do end up marrying that person, like it happened to me. Like, I did end up with that person, but that was partially me refusing to give up on them,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because
Wise
I
words.
yes, I was with my children's father for 8 years, and he cheated on me chronically the entire time and love bombed me the entire time, but I refused to leave.
Right.
So I was still giving him the space and fuel for that.
I was
It was
thinking fuel in
comfortable
my
for
in my
him.
head.
He didn't
Yeah.
have to leave, but the reality is, like, he wasn't emotionally checked in, and he
Mhm.
wasn't even like physically checked in because he was still cheating on me the entire time. So, really, I was the housekeeper, the caretaker of children, the person
The
making his
chauffeur.
life. Yeah, all of that. I was fulfilling a role in his life as a caretaker. Um, so if someone's just started dating someone, and it's an actual love bomber, like someone who's truly love bombing you, like, nah, that ain't it. That's
Yeah.
not it.
Kill it out of there, people,
Yeah.
because it just won't get any better. Or
Yeah.
it will manifest in abuse, in codependency, and
Yeah.
trauma bonding, and other ways. So to
Yeah.
avoid that, love yourself more and
Yeah.
say no. Because the more you
Yeah.
say no to that, then the universe will stop sending you those fuckers.
Yeah. And I want to make a note, like, there's a big difference between enthusiasm and strong
Yeah.
early connection and love
Yeah.
bombing. Like, you can
Well,
have a strong early connection with someone. You can
yeah, you
have
can say,
enthusiasm. That doesn't mean you
yeah.
have to, like, this is boring, we're plodding along. Like, no, it's healthy to be excited about a relationship. It's healthy to feel the connection, talk about the connection, and talk about where you want things to move forward. I think that's totally normal.
Yeah, because you can be drawn to somebody, but it doesn't mean you're just about to start love bombing them. You're just like,
Right. But
I'm
like,
drawn enough that I want to kind of sit and kind of be curious and just see where this rolls.
yeah, so healthy love grows over time.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy partners respect your boundaries on time.
Mm-hmm.
And healthy relationships have consistent energy. Whereas love bombing feels like a sprint. It feels like you've just met that person, and they're like pushing it forward, pushing it forward, pushing it forward. And love bombers also press and guilt trip you around
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and time. You know,
Yeah.
if Something that for me is a giant red flag is when I hear women in particular, married women, say things like, I need to check and make sure my partner's okay with me doing that.
Oh, I hate that bullshit.
That tells me they're probably with someone who's manipulative and love bombs, or maybe a narcissist or is controlling,
Huh?
because you are your own person. But if the person you're seeing is pressuring you to be less than your whole full individual independent self, like that's manipulation.
Hmm.
And that's not cool.
That is really, really interesting because it's like it'll just manifest in so many different ways. Like I love that example of like, oh, I don't know if I can, and I was looking up, before the show and like because we were just talking about who's sort of susceptible to this. You
Mm,
gave your example because through your own life, which is beautiful.
yeah.
And I hate that all that, that was part of the reasons, but it's empaths and highly sensitive people. So HSPs.
Hmm.
So and then you got people with low self-worth or insecurity. And you can
Hmm.
be one, you can be all of these too, like depending
Yeah.
upon where you are in your life journey, but individuals healing from past trauma.
Hmm.
Because love bombing may mimic the attention or affection they always long for, like you said, like that you didn't get,
Yeah.
before. People who crave deep connection or romantic idealism.
Uh-huh.
Um, because you might like as divine connection, and that's what you're saying. It's like, okay, that's great. We can have, because we can have so many soulmates, right? Like beautiful, like let's have divine connections. Yummy. I want more divine connections because they're absolutely lovely, but you have to know, like, I guess what they're saying in between that connection and like how they're saying they're connected with you. And
I know people and I've observed people who have gotten into relationships quickly where it progressed quickly. And I don't want to discredit that as always being a sign of being love bombed or anything like that,
yeah,
or moving too fast. Because I think there's a big difference energetically between someone who is pushing things forward because they're love bombing you from their own wounding and fear of abandonment
hmm,
versus someone who shows up authentically and genuinely, like I'm thinking in particular of a couple I know. They're both very authentic people. They have done their own self work. They were single for a long time before they met each other. And once they met each other, it was like, yes, things went quickly for them, but because they were in a space of life of they knew what they were looking for. They were
right.
intentional. They were asking the right questions. They were taking the
Mhm.
time to truly get to know each other, but and it went quickly because they were asking the right questions and
Mhm.
finding out that they were aligned. It wasn't future
In
thinking. It
big
wasn't
picture early on.
right. And they were both in the space of life where it just made sense because they
Mhm.
genuinely got to know each other and show up in authentic ways. There wasn't a love bombing scenario happening
Yeah.
from one person to the other.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, so a couple more on this list was those recently out of a relationship. So feeling vulnerable again, feeling self-worth, depending
Mm-hmm.
upon how that relationship broke up or showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Then people unfamiliar with healthy relationship boundaries. So
Yeah.
this is like, let's go back to basics on how we love ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
knowing our value and our worth and what we want and expect out of other people, right? And then
Yeah.
you have the codependent personalities, they just want to fix, they want to save, they just feel like, wow, this person needs me, they need
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Being chosen.
Yeah, being chosen. So
Yeah.
it's a fascinating topic. And I mean, we could get 10 experts on here. We probably hear the same exact things that we shared today. It's like it's pretty cut and dry. There's a lot. It's just you have to know how to hear, but you have had to do some healing to be able to listen.
Yeah. I think I mean, I've done all this healing work and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm never going to encounter love bombing again.
Right. Or even fall
that's
for it just
you
for a
don't do
month or so.
self-healing and work and growth and then you never run into the things that you've experienced.
Hmm.
What happens is you have the tools to understand it and spot it and then decide if it's for you or not. And it's like I have discernment now and the understanding
Yep.
of how that's shown up for me and the
Yep.
people I've dated.
Yeah.
And now I get to understand if someone is showing up like that, that's not for me.
Hmm.
Like I said, my nervous system is actually, because I have so much peace for myself,
Hmm.
people who love bomb and show up like that are actually deeply disruptive to me. And I literally do not want to be around it. Do
Yeah.
not want to entertain it.
I
Period.
love, yeah, I honestly just haven't experienced it like that. I mean, so I'm glad. I mean, I'm kind of grateful for it.
I'm glad that you haven't either because it's painful.
Hmm.
It is. It's painful.
Yeah. I could totally see how it would be. But I appreciate, you sharing your experiences today.
Yeah. And I just want to say the last thing probably I think that if you have experienced a lot of love bombing and you've experienced a narcissist or any of those kinds of relationships, it can also put you in a space on your healing journey where you can be highly skeptical of everyone because of the subtleties of love bombing and narcissism.
So you could actually miss out on someone potentially good for you.
Potentially, if you are hyper fixated on avoiding those things,
Hmm.
it may cause you to assume that everyone is coming from that space or be triggered by things that people say that they don't realize are a trigger for you. And they're
Hmm.
being a genuine person and they're not trying to love bomb you. Like, for example, the phrase of like, I can't stop thinking about you.
Hmm.
You know, not that long ago, if someone would have said that to me, I would have been like, oh no, fuck this. That person is like, that person is a red flag. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Someone
Hmm.
could just be authentically saying, like, I genuinely can't stop thinking about you. I'm really excited about this. But how they show up is the actual indicator.
Well, do you think that's also in the context of things? If you've been dating someone for 6 months and maybe they're finally saying things like that, then that would be lovely to hear, right? Like that's more validating and affirming. But if we're talking the first 2 to 3 weeks of a relationship, then yeah, fuck no.
I mean, even in the first 2 or 3 weeks of, I wouldn't say that that's a giant red flag on its own.
Okay, again,
Does
you're
that
like,
make sense?
what,
Of like,
yeah, what
someone could say to
context?
me, like, I think now someone could say to me, I really enjoyed our date and I can't stop thinking about you. When can we go out again?
Yeah,
I
that's
think I'd be
actually
okay
sweet.
with that. Like, that
Hmm.
would be sweet and thoughtful and cute and
Yeah.
fun and exciting. But if they were to say that and then start demanding that I see them every day
Mm.
or constantly blowing up my phone,
Hmm.
or doing that in combination with like pushing sex or like not disclosing things about themselves or getting to know me in a deeper way, those things combined, I'd be like, fuck this. But if I met
Hmm.
someone who was genuinely like, hey, I enjoyed our date, can't stop thinking about you, when would be good for you to go out again, awesome, can't wait, like that for me would be like, oh, that's cute and fun, that's awesome. So
Because they're not following up with like an hour later. They're
right,
like, you made the date, you'll see them tomorrow. Like they might just say, hey,
exactly.
hope your day was good later. Like they might say, or hey, looking forward to hanging out tomorrow.
Right, because I've had guys be like, "I couldn't stop thinking about you today. What you wearing?"
Oh, that's yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the
So
context is so important. And so where I was going with that is like when you're healing from love bombing and narcissists, it can be really easy to go the other direction of everything a guy or a person, individual, whoever they are, says that is any way similar to what a love bomber may have said in the past or a narcissist may have said in the past, it's all giant red flag. And you're just going to like be so avoidant of anyone
mhm.
expressing.
Yeah,
And so you kind of have to like, it's like a pendulum. You've gone one direction, you have to swing back the other way. And then you kind of find your middle ground
gotcha.
of understanding. what's actually safe, what's actually okay, what actually feels good.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, all of it. It's a big topic. I mean, there are so many nuances. There's so many, you know, just depending upon context, so many different, routes around, the journey, what's been said, actions, speaking louder than words or blah, blah, blah. There's just so many moving parts in that whole thing.
So much. So that's why it's confusing.
Yeah, because it depends on who's on the receiving end of it, what
Mm-hmm.
their whole life look like is the way, and how they show up today is how they are ingesting that information.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when people are a food addict or an alcoholic, it's like it's so much more accepting and normalizing to dump alcohol, but because food addict, we need food to live on, it gets so murky for people because they don't know if it's just one thing, but if they're eating based on all the things that create and make someone, a food addict, well,
Mhm.
that's when it's unhealthy. You know what I mean? It's like,
And it's the same thing with love. I mean,
yeah,
human beings, just like we can't survive without food, we can't survive without love.
right.
You
So
know,
that's why this
and
is so
how
important to
you're
find.
ingesting and sourcing that love is where the difficulty comes from.
Yeah. And if you're like had been married for 25 plus years or you've been out of the game for so long, this is really where people could get you easily.
Absolutely. A
Because,
lot
oh
of
my God, my ex-husband, never talked to me like this. I never felt so safe.
yes,
I've never,
absolutely. Yeah. One of the love bombers I dated happened after my divorce.
yep. Yep, exactly. That's when women are really susceptible at that point. Like
Yep.
they need to go through their glow up before they finally realize their worth again. And in between there, that's when all the little, yeah, I'm newly divorced. Oh, those guys, I mean, I bet those people pounce on them.
Oh, yeah. And I think that happens to men even too. I mean,
I'm sure. Oh, I'm
I
sure.
don't think it matters your gender. I would
No.
say probably single moms are the most vulnerable to
Yeah.
that, especially if they've been married for a while. Divorced single moms, I should say. But I think it happens to men just as much too. There are a ton of women out there who love bomb, who are,
Totally.
yeah, my mom was that
They're
way.
trying to they're trying to snag that man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's fun. Interesting topic, and I appreciate talking about it today.
Love you, friends.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to subscribe and share because what do we say, baby?
Sharing is caring.